lessons from my 8-year-old who told me so much about Benin. And yes, history of Benin, actually. He said it's Igodomigodo is the actual name. Speaking to them this morning as they prepared for school. And he said, Mama, did you know that Benin was once called Igodomigodo? I'm like, really? And he said, yes. So I got history lessons from my 9-year-old, almost 9-year-old son. And so I bring greetings to him. He said, if I see the king of Benin, that I should say Oba Okoteye. Otokbeye, yes. So I believe that we're all royalties in this place. So Oba Okoteye. Don't know what the response is though. Iseo. So beyond what you see here, I would give you what you do not see here. My name is Emem Akinyemiju. I was born a Nigerian, married to a Yoruba man, and I was born to two parents who thought it's good to come together and give birth to me in a little town called Enugu State. And my influence in photography started with my father because he put a camera in my face every other day, documenting our lives. Every time we went to church, every mundane things we did were in front of the camera. We have pictures of us doing different things. So I thank God for my father. He's no more. But that my influence to come in. I didn't think I was going to be a portrait photographer. I read banking and finance in school. However, I found myself somehow in love with photography, and now the portrait photographer, where I photograph the essence of women, of people, shining their light back at them and showing them who they truly are. Sometimes they like it, sometimes they don't, but that's who they truly are. So that's what I do as my job as a portrait photographer. And as an entrepreneur, of course, I went in to make some living too and be successful at that. So I call myself a businesswoman. I'm also a coach and a mentor. Recently, I decided to transfer my knowledge somehow and just make sure that people are able to succeed in photography. That's why I became a mentor and a coach to most people. So in that, so today I call it a discussion. We're just going to discuss a little bit about the importance of photography in preserving our legacy. And that's the goal of this session. So go with me. Like I said, it's a discussion, and I believe that it's going to go beyond this room. So you know a little bit of me, and I will get to ask you a little bit of you. So raise your hands if you're in this room and you have a picture of your great-grandmother. Mm-hmm. Nice. Nice. You should even have beyond. And you're lucky. So raise your hands if you remember their faces, if you're in a crowded room and they passed and you remember them. You can. You're lucky. Great-grandmother. If you were going to be in a crowded room and they passed you by, can you remember them? You are lucky. Well, you're lucky. We have one person who does, which is amazing. I am not as lucky, so this is my grandmother. Yes, she is. Cecilia Akpan Bob. She passed on at the age of 73. And a little bit of her, I will tell you, is she was 5'2", beautiful, plump, lovely lady, kind-hearted. She was a businesswoman. She went to the market. She traded. She was successful because she built a house. I think she was. And she was fashionable. You can see her 2 wrappers and her blouse and her bangle and her purse to show that, she had style in that. And the backdrop, she had style in those days. So if you're looking at my style, you know where that came from. Yeah, so I remember her for a lot of things. I remember her for her kindness, and that kindness is something that is in my family one way or the other. You have people who have traces of that, and when they tell you, they will talk about, oh, my mother was kind and all of that. I remember her for a lot of things, and this is her husband. That's my grandfather, and I was looking at that picture this morning, and I was like, oh, that cane. I remember why he carries that cane because he had a bike where he used to drive. I don't know whether he thought he was a Formula One or I don't know, one bad guy kind of guy. And he had an accident that kept him bedridden for a couple of years. And he healed from it and used the cane. But the interesting part of this picture is that he allows us remember them. He allows me think about them. I remember my grandmother for the song she used to sing. She would say, "Atayin anemeka na atayin." And interestingly, she was married to this man for more than 50 years. She's Ibibio, I'm Eket. Like my father was from Eket. We speak different dialects, but my grandmother she never spoke anything more than her Ibibio like, ever since I knew her, she spoke her language. She identified with the Ibibio. She never learned her husband's language. It was interesting to think about. And I was just looking at this picture this morning, and these are the things I remember. That's what you remember. That's the beautiful thing about photography, because it tells the story long after the moment had happened. So as photographers, I know that what we think we do are just it's capturing moments. But beyond that, I believe that we tell stories. We tell stories of individuals. We tell stories of their identity, who they are. You know, you see people in, I can't tell you how many women have taken pictures that want to be identified as an Edo princess. So they've kind of made the fashion even nicer these days, or they want to, identify as a sultan, or they want to identify as anything. People, we tell that story. We preserve. And I've also seen people who have come in and have cried by just, we tell the story of pain. We tell the story. I know that a lot of people tell a story of, they're all smiling and all of that, but I've seen story of pain being told through photographs. And every time I feel like every time I want my clients or people that I photograph to look at the pictures, I want them to remember the moment of their life, to flash through their life, where they were at that time and what happened at that time. So beyond taking beautiful pictures, beyond the moments, what we do is preserve a story that goes on years and years afterwards. Which brings us to the fact that we are storytellers. We tell stories of families. They want to see themselves as happy, even though they have problems. Everybody knows that people have problems. But this is a story they want to tell. So we help them tell that story. But beyond this, everybody wants to be seen and known for something. Everybody wants to be remembered for something. Everybody wants to be significant, which is why we choose the kind of careers, we choose the kind of relationship, we choose what we want to do, what we want to achieve. So because we seek some sort of importance, some sort of relevance. And in this whole trend of is just to show we all want to be seen. That's one of the important thing, and that's why they come to us to tell that story. So we begin to tie what we do as photographers. We marry it with the storytelling, and we can do this in any way. I do this with the genres that I photograph. I photograph the corporate headshot for high-end individuals. I do the family portraits for families that want to reconnect with their families, both generational families, and I document all of that. The maternity portraits for women who are just happy to be pregnant and they want to show that, or the ones who have been expecting for a long time and they eventually do. The glam portraits that it's everywhere right now, the men's portrait, the children's portrait. So we tell the stories of these people. And this woman in particular, I remember she came and said, Emem, I want you to photograph me. I work in a male-dominated industry. And sometimes I feel like they don't look at me with so much importance. I want this picture to come out as strong. And I always wear the red lipstick. And I said, okay, then wear the red lipsticks. This is what people identify you as then, but it helped me look at the way she wanted to be photographed. So I knew that, okay, how am I going to place her? How am I going to pose her? How do I make her shoulders? We went with the makeup. How does she want to look? Of course, I don't want her smiling. She won't be taken seriously. So that's how we tied that story that she said she wants to be her aspiration to what we were preserving for her. And I've done this with the glam girls. That's the people that want to show their birthdays. They want to be a princess for a day. So they want to be a Cinderella for that day, or they want to look like the Edo princess. However, whatever way we tell that story and preserve for them. So with storytellers, we create stories that reflect our clients' emotions, how they feel at the time, are they happy at the time, and where they want to be in life. They want to be a doctor, they come in. They want to celebrate a promotion, they come in, and all of that. We're storytellers. So that's the power of portraiture. That's what we do as photographer. So I usually would say that beyond the composition, the lighting, the posing, and the know-hows of taking a good photograph, while all of that is important, I feel that what makes a great image is the emotional connection between the artist and their client. And I've done this severally by the conversations that I have with them beforehand and after I take the picture. Sometimes I did one, that's what makes the great picture that you see. Every time I connect with my clients, I sort of know something about them. The last client I had last week, Saturday, told me so much about her mom who had passed. There were twins, 250 years, they're both turning 50 next week. And they told me how their grandmother, how everything they are today was owed to their mother, not their grandmother. And the ideologies, the way they pushed them and all of that. And I looked at them and said, you're fortunate to have her as a mother. And I felt like it opened up something in me. So what they do for me as a client is I don't know, it's as powerful as what I do for them. So beyond that, I believe again that it's the emotional connection between you and your subject that brings out that real thing, that real extraordinary portrait. So sometimes when you see my portraits, I don't even fake it. I have a lot of experiences where people cry as they take their images, or they see something behind and they're like, oh, I never knew this was. They just bear their mind. We're not therapists, but in some way, this happens, and that's because of the emotional connections that we have with our clients. Now, it leads me to identity. Who are we? Identity is you. Who you are as a person. And honestly, who we are as people have been shaped and colored greatly by culture. What is culture? Culture is the way we do life, the way we talk, the way we dress, the way we even want to aspire to be whatever. You see people, now everybody wants to be a photographer. There are more women photographers because it's in now. People want to be, people are just drawn to culture. What is going on? Let's bring it home. The whole trend of milestone celebration is now a thing. People get into the studio to celebrate their age. Why? Because culture, because it's just the way of life. That's what people see. So the people tend to do what they see. But, I mean, it's interesting that when it comes to this subject of preserving humans and culture and all of that, I particularly am intrigued with artists who have kept their identity, who know who they are and are true to themselves, and somehow try to use that to shape other people's thinking. And one of them is Chimamanda. No, I did not take this picture, but I just used it as an example to show that I love particularly how she knows who she is. She identifies as an African woman. She keeps her hair the way it is intentionally. She chooses the designers that make her clothes are all indigenous designers, Nigerians. She's proud. She's proud of her work, and she talks with pride in. I mean, she's one artist that I love, who have preserved her culture, who have preserved her identity, and goes on and on. And there are other ones like Ngozi Iweala, who, no matter where she steps into, any part of the country, she wears her Ankara and ties her beautiful turban, nice blouse and skirt. These people try to keep an identity as an African. They are proud to be called African. They do not conform to the culture to other culture. And there's nothing bad about that. But somehow they want other people to see them as that, and to also bring it back home and to know who you are, so that we don't, like they say, culture is, it's our culture is slowly, I don't know, being taken away from us, with the advent of social media and all of that. But when we have people like this spearheading their identity and calling themselves Africans, we are able to shape the minds of other people who follow us. So it begs the question where I begin to start asking myself that, how do we as creatives, how do we as photographers, how do we as filmmakers, how do we as script writers change or shape culture? How do we do these things? So for me, I use my tool to impact. I use my ideologies, my philosophies, my idiosyncrasies, how I think, what I think about, to shape this. So beyond doing the commercializing my art, which is the reason why, we want to eat. We want to be able to live well. I want to be able to do stuff for my children. But beyond that, I feel like we are culture shapers. I feel like as photographers, there's so much that we can do, even with our mindset, like, with what we think, which led me to do a lot of social campaigns, social work around what I believe. And part of that's me over there, No Other Body Project. I used to have a lot of hatred about my body. I didn't like my body. For a long time, I suffered that. But I used that to call on people to say, love the body that you're in. It was a project to say that you are who, your body is not you. You are more than your body. And with the trend today that is making a lot of people, that's putting a filter on people's perception around people's body. Everybody's thinking that it's cool to change whatever they don't like. Oh, you don't like your nose? Go to the doctor. You don't like your butt? Go to the doctor. While that is, it's a controversial topic, but for me as an individual, for me as an artist, I'm going to preach on love the body you are in. And I brought up that discussion. And a lot of people sent me emails talking about how I freed them from that. And I realized that, okay, that's something I'm doing in the right direction with my tool. So not only did I put this campaign was not driven for money. This campaign was not, it was barely a call to, for people to think differently from what society is saying. So in my little way, I brought out campaigns around my own ideology to say, love the body you're in. And there's more to your body than, this body carried you all these years. So there's so much that you can preach, just something to change the narrative. And then there was Ageless, which I did for the women who are 40 and beyond. You know how you just feel like, oh, you're 40 and you're getting old. I was turning 40 at the time. So, which was just last year, I'm not like 45 or something. So I was, and I drew people to say, see, you can even start today and build something. Age does not matter. What you do with today. Coming into this place and listening to Mr. Paul, it's you don't even want to know what it's done to my mind. And which is one of the reasons I love conferences and discussions like this that just challenges my thoughts. So please go for conferences. Do that because it just builds up your mind and changes it, because there are too many distractions. Sorry, I digress. So Ageless was meant to call people to say you can be whatever you want to be at any age you want. You can do whatever. Let your age not be the limitation. Yes, you can. And I'm glad that I live in a time where women are no longer hiding their age. They're actually speaking up and saying, yes, I'm this, and I started a business today. And, so I called on women or called on people to come out and speak of their achievements and speak of their, and your achievement doesn't have to be anything that has to do with money in your bank account. It's just, what can you do? What do you even want to do? So that social campaign was what I drove. And then there was The Survivor. This was in 2020. And, I had my baby in 2020 in the middle of, in fact, in the start of the pandemic. It wasn't it wasn't an easy time. Driving your baby through to the hospital to get vaccinated and all of that. There are people that I know, friends that lost their husbands during that time. So I wanted people, invited them to come and hear their story. And in hearing their story, speak about their pain, speak about what they achieved. For me, it was a happy year. So it wasn't, I had a baby I was waiting to have a baby, and I had a baby then. So it was a different story for me. But that was my call for people to come in and get photographed for that. And again, like I said, it wasn't, this project was not money driven. It was my idea of giving back to what I thought in my mind. So I challenge you. And then there was Love Is. Love Is was, what is love? What really is love? There are a lot of ideologies, a lot of things that people think is love these days. So this campaign begged the question, what is love to people? And I shared different images, narrating my own thoughts about love. So, I'm sorry. Okay, I think this is not. Okay, so it leads me back to emotions. They say a picture is worth more than 1,000 words. Every picture must evoke an emotion, some sort of thought, some sort of emotions out of you. And I look back at the slave trade picture. Every time I look at it, every time you see such a picture, what does it do to you? You're angry. For me, I look at it and I'm like, how did these people survive? What was in their mind in that ship, being tied? It disturbs my mind. Every time I watch a movie of a slave, I cry the whole time. Now that's what storytelling does. It has to evoke an emotion. So every time I take a picture, sometimes when they come in and they're like, I'm like, that's not how you always, can you just, no smile, just let me see your face. So even though we want to evoke an emotion, we must sort of, I don't know. So let me bring it back home. If you look at the NSAS picture, what does it do to you? It gives you some sort of chill. It gives you some sort of, sometimes you're like, is there hope for this country? It challenges your mind. So every picture you take somehow must have some sort of emotion, must evoke some sort of emotion, which leads me back to, you need an emotional connection of some sort in order to create that impactful image. And in doing so, I would say that when it comes to portraiture, you cannot tell what language anybody speaks. One of the things you can tell a race of a person, but you cannot tell any other thing. However, there are lines that we cannot cross as photographers when we are doing. Yes, we want to sell our pictures. Yes, as portrait photographers, the technology has given us the tool and power to do whatever we want to do. However, there are lines we must not cross as photographers to obliterate things like obliterating the skin of people. You want to still see an old person and recognize them as an old. If you zoom into that picture, you probably see some veins. You want to see their hair still looking like their hair. You want to see a feature of them. You want their great-grandchildren to look at them and say, oh, this looks like me, not that it looks like someone else, And today, with the advent of technology, we sort of, want to copy out something. But that's not what I want to speak about. I feel like there are lines that we must not cross as photographers in keeping our images real enough so that it can be recognized and it can tell the truth about a picture. Even though this is a fashionable picture, however, there are elements that must be kept to be that must be kept true. Authenticity, keeping the element of uniqueness. So we must keep a form of uniqueness in each picture that we take. And to bring this to a close, I would say, how do we preserve humans? How do we keep that legacy and the identity? It's through personal projects. When we commercialize, we're doing what our clients want us to do. I mean, that's what they saw in our work for them to come to us. However, we must also go out of the studio sometimes and build work that we think is true to ourselves, that we think is true to our minds, that we think is the truth, and take those pictures. So we must build connection. I believe in building connection. And like he mentioned, connections are, you never know where it will take you. Then create storage. One of the things he mentioned was about my box. I don't believe in giving images in digital. I think that we are more than digital. We're not a digital. Yeah, digital is good. It's a controversial topic again. However, I believe in giving you something, prints, that can preserve, that you can pass down, that you can keep. I was able to get these images from my auntie last week, and they sent it to me in Lagos, and I had to do some painstaking things to remove because those pictures were going bad. And I thought to myself, how do we preserve this? How do I show my great grandchildren coming ahead that we need to keep this, how do I keep this picture? So we need to create other storage, like, thank God for the clouds now where we can store pictures and store things. We need to create prints that last. They are archival prints that we use. I make sure that I use a good print to store my images. And I tell my clients, I don't sell, this is the real product that they buy. That the soft copies are complimentary. The prints are what I sell because I believe in preserving legacy. I want them to pass on this box to the next, to the next, to the next. The prints, they will lose when they lose their phones, they lose the images. But when they keep this prints and pass on, they probably have something to give. Like my auntie gave me those images. So in conclusion, I take an excerpt from a poet, a South African poet called Obakeng Mafeche, and it says, a culture, your identity is you. A language, your soul is you. If forsaken, you are forsaken. Should they be instinct, you are taken. It is such a strong one if you think about it. We're nothing. There is no identity without you. There is no culture without you. And there's no soul without you. There's no language without you. So if they take all of these things, if I do not remember my grandmother for anything, I remember her for speaking a language. And I make sure that my children will remember how to speak. So we speak they say the mother tongue. I'm married to a Yoruba man, but I speak my dialect to my children. And I don't just speak it when I'm angry. I make sure that they repeat it back at me because I want to keep that going on and on and on. So, when we talk about culture preservation, we can't keep these images, we can't keep our identity without understanding that. So I will, okay. So this is the last slide, which says, imagine a world without photographs. This man came in to take a picture of his entire family. I love what portrait photography stands, because you can see it in all of this. The eyes, the chin, the lips, the beads. Imagine a world without photograph. Imagine that these children will go on and never pass down this image of them. That little boy will grow up and not be able to tell what distincts or what makes him different from his father. Imagine a world without photographs. Thank you. fine. You can stand.
Hello. Okay, good. Can we give a hand clap once again to beautiful Emem?
Thank you.
I will let you sit down. So you sit, so I don't stress you from standing. But once again, thank you, Emem, for
Thank
the
you.
thought-provoking session that we have had. I like the stories from your grandparents. I'm really grateful to God that I met my grandfather, I met two of my grandmothers, I met my grandfather-in-law, I met my grandmother-in-law. You don't know what God has done for you when you meet those people. When I was going to secondary school, I schooled in the West. So on my way back home, I stopped by my hometown, Owo. I sleep in my paternal grandmother's house. I eat in my maternal grandmother's house.
Wow.
My paternal grandmother, very lovely human being, but I don't like her food. But I like her space. My maternal grandmother, I love her food. Because in her food is her person. She makes food without meat because she didn't have the resource to buy meat. But I liked her food because herself was in that food. And I take that with me anywhere I go. I see it in my mom. Maybe that's the partiality I had. But I'm grateful to God that I saw her. But the only thing I miss is I didn't make a picture of her. I don't have a picture of her that I made or someone made. So please, it's important. And I'm grateful to God that I was able to go see them where they were and see how they lived and the kind of lives they lived. My grandfather was wealthy. He's a rich man. She had that Ajebo life. My grandmother, the other one, used to go to the farm. Her palm, she touches your hands, and you know this hand is the hand of a hard worker. Like my paternal grandmother was a trader. She was a farmer. But I still feel, if I see them, I could draw them in my head, but I don't have a picture of them. So please make sure if you have them, document them and print it. Thank you, Emem, once again.
Thank you.
Everyone wants to be remembered. Our experiences, our emotions, our aspirations as artists is part of our assignment to document these things. But in your conversation today, one thing re-echoed. You can't create without having a conversation. So maybe later on, if nobody asks you a question, I would like you to expatiate on that, the importance of conversations before a portrait. So I'll open up the space. Does anybody have a question for Emem? You had two questions there. Okay. Any other person? Okay, three questions. Our sisters, nobody's asking a question. Okay, Dave, please come.
So it's good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
It's not a question for me. It's just to add to what you said when you made mention of did you meet your grandmother or your grandparents? I lost my grandfather yesterday, and I had this I had this feeling to go and visit him. Last week, I had this feeling to go and visit him. I was in the same city. I did not go. Why? I felt I can always go back there now. It's not in the village. I can always go back. But when you said this thing today, it just reminded me that when your guts tell you to do something, you don't know why it's telling you. You don't know why you're feeling that way. Just go there, make that picture, tell that story, relive that moment. Because if I had followed my guts, maybe I would have shared the last moment with him. Thank you very much for this speech.
Thank you. God. Sorry for the loss.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
And
afternoon.
thank you so much for the session. So I kind of have a question even before this conference, and it's about portrait photography. And I kind of observed that. Okay, I don't want to mention because there's a particular demographic where they edit in such a way that you will not see the texture of the skin. So I'd rather keep that and not mention. So my question now is, what can be done to this pandemic of having over smooth skin? Because it's really a problem now. Because to me, identity is part of what makes up identity can be your experience. An experience can be maybe you probably had an accident and you have a cut around your face. And that's part of your identity that, okay, this happened at this social time. People that live during the war, we have marks on their body. And that is part of their identity. Most of our people that have marks, the tribal marks, it's either because of beauty or because of protection, either ways, depending on the culture. So what, as a portrait photographer, what do you think can be done to either reduce it or maybe do something about that? I hope the question is clear.
Yes, it's very, very clear.
Thank you.
So I don't think that you can do anything about that. There would always be good and there will always be bad. And I don't also believe that people are good and bad. I just think decisions is what makes them. But I think that you can show the standard of what you want. There are people who do not touch pictures, who do not retouch it. They keep it the way they are. And that's because that's their own belief. And there are people who would do minimal, and there are people who just who just want the light to do that shading. And they tell you, okay, there's shadow here, love your shadows. It comes with what picture is. So I feel that if you want to start a change with yourself. People have come to me and said, okay, your pictures look like some other person. However, there's some sort of realism. So I have editors I work with, and sometimes I'm like, oh, leave those bags, leave those eye bags. I want to see them. While some clients will come and tell you, oh, I don't want the eye bags. I want to sell my picture, Oga. I will remove your eye bags. But if I'm doing my personal project, I want to keep those things that I want to keep. So I want to keep my bulgy stomach. I want to keep my flappy arms. But if I'm doing it for a client and they say, hey, man, but what I've done again is I pose you in such a way that those things that you feel are a distraction will not be in, I don't know, you won't see them as much. But I will first of all commercialize my trade. However, there are things that I will not go. When it comes to textures, I want to show the textures of my skin. I know somebody that brought a Snapchat picture and said, this is me. She actually showed me 5 of them. True story. I'm not saying that looks like. Snapchat. And what did I do? I gave her Snapchat, but I didn't post it. I gave her Snapchat. I didn't put on my pictures. I did not do that. And I'm sorry. I'm going to sell my pictures. I need to feed my babies. So I will do that. But the change starts with you. The change, put a campaign. Let your voice speak without bringing people down, without making another person not sell their pictures, because, you never know what feeds any other person. But you can lend your own voice by doing that. And I want to thank you again, because when you put me into this assignment, I went back to I started thinking about, okay, who was my great-grandmother? Who was my grandmother? I don't even know my grandmother's name. So it led me to what Mr. Paul was saying. How can I build a library of family lineage, family tree? How can I start telling people to driving that notion of, do you even know your grandmother's name? Do you know your great-grandmother's name? Do you know something that was like a mole, like something that's in your family line? And I want to challenge everybody here. You can take it as a project and do that. Find apps, build apps that, I don't know if I'm going to do it, I don't care. Even if I want to do it, you can also do it. You might do it even better than I am, but we have to find a way to preserve these things for people and generations to come. So Start with you. The change starts with every one of us. Thank you. I hope I answered your question.
All right, thank you so much for that lecture. My question borders on the conversation you have before your client, before your
Okay.
portrait session. I want you to just let us know, tell us more about that, so that we can.
Sorry, the conversation.
Yes, you mentioned that while you're
Oh,
making
okay.
your photographs. Yes, sometimes we want to get such conversation, but most times clients will come late and they want to rush out. So all you talk about is NEPA, makeup artist, and all that. Sometimes the true picture comes from that story that they tell you. So I want to know how you manage to.
Okay, so before I start a session, a lot of things happen, both from the spiritual angle and from preparing my mind. So I charge enough to know that my clients are booking me for the day. So I know that this lateness is going to come, and I'm not going to make them angry to say, oh, you have to pay a lateness fee. So, and when they come, I begin to, I don't know, the conversation can go anyway. It can be like, oh, what inspired you to do this? Have you done this before? And then they begin to tell me, oh, something. They just talk, and I listen. And sometimes they share more personal details. Sometimes I can tell them, can you imagine when you were, I told a grandma, she was turning 90, what, 90? Yes, she was turning 90 or something. And I said, imagine when you were a baby. She broke down and started crying. And she said, I lost we're 10. My entire siblings died. I was the only one that survived. My father had to take me to some other person to raise me because they believed that it was something that had to do with the family. She shared on and told me how she lost her son. And just by that story, I was able to connect. It wasn't about the money anymore. I took pictures until as she was crying, I was taking the pictures. As she was laughing, and I said, okay, Mama, we're going to dance now. And we started dancing, and we were taking, and she was like, hey, and that was her. But it went from so we had different emotions. And when they picked, this picture looked like Mama when she was 40. Oh, this picture looked like Mama when she was 30. And the children were happy. So for me, it's that the conversation can go anyway. Sometimes it might just be a small thing. Sometimes it might be a big thing. Sometimes I might just tell a man, it's your girlfriend, I laugh. You see them, two couples will come, they're fighting, but just in that little conversation, and then they start laughing. It's not your girlfriend, I laugh at, and then they start, it just releases them. And at that moment, I capture something. So it can come in any way. It can come just by being relaxed. I create a very relaxing environment in my studio. So the music I play, I make sure I either play mine or I tell them to come with a playlist. So all of that can relax them. So I don't know, there's so much that happens before the entire picture or the picture that you create. I don't know if that answers it. Thank you.
Thank you, Emem. And let's give a hand clap. Any other question before we go to the last session for today? Okay, there's a question there.
Okay, ma'am. I have two questions.
Okay.
While you were giving your presentation, you mentioned this trend that is going on. Even though you said it's a controversial, I see, or most times on the internet we see arts which are no longer photographs anymore because of the use of technology, AI. And my question to you is, how do you see these emerging trend impacting our industry? Because the reason everyone is here is how whatever we do from now on is we tell our stories and we impart our identity. However, I feel that this emerging trend is already taking away so much from what we know as photographs. So we see photograph, we don't know if it is AI generated image or it is originality. So how do we combat this trend moving forward? And also, how do we balance our expression as artists with the success that we have?
How do we balance
Our artistic expression
Artistic.
with our commercial success?
Okay, to answer the first one, there's nothing we can do about technology. Technology is here to stay, it's here to help us, it's here to be, it's just here. So you have to play with it. It's just like saying, how do people write stories anymore without using AI? AI, as much as it has come to destroy a lot of livelihood, it has also helped people, and it's a tool. So we must embrace technology in all its ways. But again, like I said, you just have to have a line where you can't cross. And sometimes you might decide to say, you know what, I'm not about riches. I'm just not going to. And somebody would say, I like your work because it's not AI. And they will come to you. So, but you have to say, if that's your purpose of staying through, you stay true to yourself. Like, I keep referring to Paul because I think you've just busted my head. Imagine somebody saying, what's with the whole, what Oxford University and all of that, and building his own thing. I'm not going to conform. And he stayed unique to his craft. But it doesn't mean that those goals or the people that go there, it's not good. He's just saying, this is me. This is what I want to do. And there are people that will say, leave that one. Does it make it bad? No, it doesn't. So I feel that in that aspect, AI is here to stay. And instead of shrinking at other people's work or, making a face or just complaining all the time, it's what are you doing? What's your own purpose? And your own purpose doesn't mean you don't have to build a skyscraper to be in purpose. You just have to say, this is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. And one day somebody would say, you know what? This guy is so unique. I'm going to celebrate him for this. That he created a work that looks like AI, but wasn't AI. Because you stayed true. I don't know if that makes sense. And then the second question, what was it again? Something about your art and being successful? Commercializing. So again, when it comes to commercializing, you get to make money. And you just have to choose. There are people that just don't care about money. They care about their art. And there are artists that don't have any money. They just want to be artists. They are okay living under the rocks. While there are artists like me that want to be in an AC environment and take my children everywhere, and I want to make money. So, right. I hope that answers.
Thank you once again. Let's clap for our sister.